Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were to go racing with 6-cylinder cars. So the cars here could have V6s, inline 6s or flat 6s. The first race would go to the Nürburgring GP circuit in the rather pouring rain, and while the leaders made it around turn 1 okay, there was a little bit of shenanigans further back. Unfortunately, Husky's Volvo would be utterly destroyed in this race. The Ferrari Dino that we're following at the moment was battling with a Ford Capri. The Ferrari trying to get up the inside, couldn't quite make the move stick through here. The Ford was holding on, but through this next turn, when you take such a tight line on the way in, you tend to understeer a little bit wide, and sure enough, that's what happened to the Capri with a bit of rally crossing across the grass. You're not going to find much grip out there. The Dino would move up that position. The Capri had a little bit of a sniff, but it wasn't close enough through the next turn. Further back, and once we'd all sort of sorted ourselves out, this Maserati was trying to make his way through the order as they go too wide through the chicane. It is very narrow through that part of the track. The Gibble cuts back to the inside against the skyline and would get his car there, while up ahead a BMW M1 was going around the outside of a Supra at the final corner. That's a pretty tough manoeuvre to do. To go around the outside, that's a long corner, especially in the wet, to get it around the outside. But the BMW would move up a position. Maserati was now to give chase to the Supra. Supra has a big dive up the inside. He can't stop it. The Gibble also has some trouble getting slowed down. The Nissan is coming back into contention. The BMW can now vanish away from this little group just by having made sure to have got that braking right down to the first corner. Maserati not quite close enough to try anything on the Toyota as of yet. I was driving an Alfa Romeo GT V6, a car that was actually going really rather well. Not my normal sort of vehicle to use in this kind of event, but this Alfa was a bloody good car. I outdrag a Dino coming out of the head just simply with the grip and the acceleration from the Alfa. I could outdrag the Ferrari Dino, or one of the Ferrari Dinos that's coming up against another one. It was a little bit more of an oversteery car than I would normally drive, but it was proving to be a pretty quick car, and while built mainly for the dry, it was holding its own certainly. In the wet, I may have eaten a little bit too much curb trying to get up the inside of the Dino ahead. When you're back here, when you've got two cars ahead of you going through this section, you don't see a thing. It is so difficult to see when you're running so close to the cars ahead with all of the spray. So there was a little bit of kind of turn in and hope to that part of the track. We all made it through okay. I go super aggressive across the curbs, trying to get a nice run out of the chicane as the Dino in the background goes for a spin. I get up the inside into the final corner and manage to get the Alfa alongside, and again use the acceleration. The actual straight line speed in my GTV was not particularly amazing, but it had good enough acceleration, and it made the most of getting out of the corners. It could often outdrag cars quite quickly out of the turns as we come rushing down towards turn 1. The Dino was just that little bit too far back to really try very much against the Alfa, and I'd go off after a BMW. There was one other Alfa racing in this one. The SZ was finding himself in a battle with a Toyota Supra. This particular Alfa had a huge amount of cornering speed, carries so much speed through these turns, but was struggling with the straight line speed part. Supra up ahead gets a huge slide across the curbs. Quite easy to do that, especially with the nasty curbs around there. The Alfa would spot his opportunity. Always scary going past a car that's just had that bigger a slide. The Alfa would spot his opportunity and get past, and he could try and make as much of a gap as he could through these corners. The problem is now we're coming to a relatively long straight, and as I said, the Alfa was quite a bit struggling for the straight line speed. The Supra was reeling him back in. The question was, would the Alfa be far enough ahead as they come under braking? The Alfa runs a little bit too deep through the first part of the chicane. That puts you very slow through the second part. Now the Supra's coming back, even though it's not quite as good through the corners, because the Alfa Romeo had run that little bit wide. He goes very deep into the final corner. Not sure if he's hoping to a cutback. I think he was trying to, and he does get a very, very good run out of the turn, but he doesn't have the acceleration to compete with the Supra. And the Supra has got the position back. For Capri was in there, kind of just watching in case anything went on. I continued my march up through the field with the GTV6, probably one of the fastest cars on track in this race, coming up against as the BMWs are trying to find a way past the M3, pretty much pushing it along down the straight. As I said, I didn't have the fastest top speed in the Alpha, but it was putting up a good fight. We go 3 wide coming down towards turn 1 with me on the very, very tight line. I overrun ever so slightly. The M3 tries to come back to the inside. In the end, the 2002 Turbo just asked a little bit too much of his car around the outside there. It was always not particularly likely to work. We got through it cleanly though, which I think the car behind that was watching us wasn't quite expecting. Or once we go 3 wide into that first corner, everyone to survive. But we did. You can see the Alpha was a bit of a squirmy car, especially in the wet. It did like to slide about, did like to wiggle about across the road a little bit. The Supra's managed to find one another towards the end of this race, fighting for the lower places in the top 10 as we now come down this back straight. Both of them get out of the corner side by side, and now this is probably the fastest, scariest part to be doing a manoeuvre on this track. The orange Supra on the outside, so close to ending in disaster there. They do manage to make it through. That's a fantastic overtake to give each other enough space and to make a pass stick down that part of the track, especially in the wet with cars as quick as these. It was. Yeah, it was bravery, and it paid off. At the front, and it had been a Golf that had led for pretty much the entire race. He'd been under increasing pressure from a Skyline. The Skyline, though, just could not find a way past. Every time the Skyline closed up, he'd try manoeuvres or he'd make a little mistake, then drop back and then spend another lap catching up, and then stick behind the Golf for a while before he tried something. And the Skyline just couldn't find a way past. The Golf was doing a good job of defending his position as they run through the chicane for the final time. I think the Golf perhaps a tiny bit faster in a straight line, the Skyline a bit quicker through the corners, but the Skyline just ran out of opportunities to find a way past the Volkswagen, and then the Skyline gets quite a big slide coming out of that final corner there. So it would be the Golf that would take victory from the Skyline in second place. My Alpha would get up to third. I'd made a couple of dumb mistakes in the closing laps, otherwise I might have caught up to this lead battle. That's how quick the GTV6 was. Really impressed with my Alfa Romeo. Race number 2, and we headed to the Laguna Seca Raceway. Everybody got a pretty good start. The four-wheel drive cars, of course, launching very, very quickly. This Subaru trying to go around the outside of everybody, really, into turn 1. A very, very fast Fairlady Z was also on the outside down there. The Subaru got a tiniest little bit of a knock, but again, everyone made it through turn 1 here pretty cleanly. Husky managed to survive turn 1 without having his Volvo utterly ruined, which was a better start for him. I was just stuck in the middle of traffic. I didn't get very good grid positions for this evening with the GTV. Despite it being such a good car, I was just unlucky with the random grid draw, so I had a lot of traffic to try and make through. The Corvette up ahead makes it 3 wide as we run down this next short straight section, and the Corvette would get the Clio and Jag before the corner. Corvette immediately on the Volvo. The Subaru's trying to make it 3 wide, trying to go around the outside. That's a long way to go around the outside of 2 other cars. The Fairlady Z has a humongous amount of acceleration and a fantastic run out of the turn. Gets all 3 of them up to the top of the course, and still the Subaru is side by side with the Clio. The Jaguar had to back out, otherwise he's going to get squeezed out of road. I make most of the opportunity and dive past the E-Type on the run up towards the corkscrew. The Corvette fighting with Husky's Volvo. The Subaru runs a little bit too wide under braking down there. It was a fairly frantic opening lap, this one, with quite a lot of 2 and 3 wide throughout the field as a round 5 gets a very, very big slide. It's not quite what you want your car to be doing. While the leader was enjoying running away at the front, the Mercedes Gullwing in second place was coming under increasing threat from a BMW M1 and a Plymouth Prowler. I'd forgot about the Prowler. They can actually be surprisingly good cars. I completely forgot about them for this sort of a race. The Mercedes just got shuffled a little bit wide at the top of the hill, made himself a little bit slow off the corner. The BMW seized the opportunity, immediately diving up the inside. The BMW then compromises the Mercedes by running him deep into the corkscrew. That gives the Prowler an opportunity to go around the outside of the bottom of the corkscrew. Don't see very many overtakes done down there. The Gullwing's in all sorts of trouble, though, as he's getting passed by by cars. And this is one of the difficulties that you can have. Once you end out of position for one corner, that's all that happened to the Gullwing, is out of position for one corner as the M1 found a way past. It puts you out of position for the next corner, and then the corner after that, and it kind of snowballs throughout the course of the lap. At this stage, the Gullwing had only lost a couple of places. The Fairlady Z, though, was catching, and using that fantastic straight line speed of the Nissan comes soaring past the Mercedes as they now run down towards the first corner once more. The Fairlady Z is actually on the outside of the Prowler down there. Isn't quite able to make that move stick. The Plymouth had far too much cornering grip. Mercedes did catch up a little bit, but yeah, there was quite a lot of close racing going on at the start here. Husky's Volvo survived much longer in this race. He was battling with a Fairlady Z, the Volvo, being pushed a little bit too hard into turn 1 and was struggling a bit with some oversteer. It was quite a sideways Volvo around this track, as a Lexus in the background gets a big sideways moment as well. The Impreza was trying to find a way past said Volvo. The Fairlady up ahead was struggling with a little bit of oversteer as well out of that previous corner. They're still going too wide. The Nissan is all over the place, and again very, very slow over the corner. The Volvo's catching the Subarus right in there as well. It's very nearly 3 wide. You don't really want to be 3 wide. Husky has a wheel pretty much on the dirt in the braking zone there. Still the Volvo stays on the outside of the Impreza. For the first half of a lap almost, the Volvo has been on the outside, or on the inside, been alongside. That Subaru then pushes it far too hard through the next corner. That puts him across the dirt. The Renault 5 is going to get the pair of them as they run up towards the corkscrew with a much better run. The Impreza's there, but couldn't quite get the move done. And now we come towards the corkscrew, and it's pretty much going to be too wide down there as well. They're all being caught by the Lexus. Once you start fighting like this, you're all going to get caught by the vehicles behind. The Renault 5 can now go and focus chasing after the Fairlady Z up ahead. The Husky's Volvo is back across the dirt a little bit more. It's surviving it all. The Impreza's now got a wheel on the dirt as they come up towards the final corner. Volvo goes very, very defensive. They've actually got quite close to getting up the inside of the Renault 5 as he continues to fight with the Nissan up ahead. And in the space of a lap, you're seeing how much that Lexus has caught up. It was like right at the back of shot coming into turn 1 the previous lap. The way they were fighting was not helping their cause, certainly, with making progress. The Subaru's to the inside at turn 1, leaves it too late though, can't get stopped. Subaru's going to go and play in the dirt, and that's going to cost him all on me at the time. Back towards the front, and the BMW M1 was still holding on to second place, but he was coming under more and more pressure from the very, very fast Nissan and running a little bit wide. That's all invitation that the Fairlady Z needs to get up the inside. The Nissan, of course, not quite as good through the turns, overruns the corner ever so slightly. BMW is going to cut back to the inside and briefly regains the position, but it is no match for the Fairlady Z's straight line speed. And by the time they get to the next corner, it's just kind of too far out of range. The BMW can just about cling on through the turns, but as soon as they get to acceleration zone, the Fairlady Z is pretty much gone. Again, there was plenty of good racing in this one throughout the field. This was outside the top 10 between a Clio V6 and a Lexus as they round the final corner. These guys had remained close for the first few laps. The Lexus spotted an opportunity. The Clio running a little bit wide out of the final turn, which is a little bit slow coming on to the straight. Lexus would outdrag him and get the position before they get down towards turn 1. The Clio, I think, perhaps thought about having a big dive, but realised he was far too far back to really have a go with that one. Back towards the front, and the Plymouth had dropped back behind the Gullwing and kind of got a little bit stuck trying to repass the Mercedes. The first time round had been helped by the BMW finding a way past, but now the Plymouth was having a really tough time finding a gap to get an overtake done. The Plymouth very, very quick through the corners, but didn't have the straight line speed, didn't have the acceleration of the Mercedes, and just couldn't quite get his car in the right position despite his best efforts. Tries to get to the inside, there's not quite space through here, and even if you do, you then end up stuck on the outside for the next corner, and the Mercedes can just accelerate away that little bit down to the next corner. Again, the Plymouth cuts back to the inside on the exit of that corner, but you're still being forced to go the long way round. As we come towards the next turn, he goes for it around the outside of the final turn. That is another tough place to do a manoeuvre such as that, and he keeps his car alongside but doesn't quite have the acceleration to hold it for any length of time. The Gullwing can get the position back. The Renault 5 is absolutely flying. I think probably gets in a little bit of trouble across the crest there. We have seen that cause issued for cars before, because the Renault 5 was looking to go up the inside, come down turn 1, but couldn't quite do it. I think the crest probably messed with the little Renault, and the Prowler was very much stuck behind the Mercedes. I've been a bit unfortunate. A spinner at the start of lap 1 had inadvertently ended up slightly ruining my GTV6. Kind of everyone scattered and I had nowhere to go. I didn't see it until the very last second, so I was driving quite a broken Alpha, still a relatively fast Alpha though, and I was racing with a Maserati Gibble who had suffered a similar fate at the start of the race. After going side by side through the first couple of corners, managed to make a move stick around the outside, which was quite surprising considering the state of my suspension and so on. Yeah, the Alpha was quite slidey to start with, but when you have kind of broken suspension and stuff, it's a little bit more of a handful, really. As we came towards the closing stages of the race, there was still quite a lot of action going on. Husky's Volvo had been fighting with the Fairlady Z for pretty much the entirety of the race, and NSX had been catching them though, and spotted an opportunity. As the Nissan ran just that little bit too wide, the NSX would put his car up alongside, but again, we've seen this before, you can get up the inside there, but then you're forced to go the long way round of the next corner, and sure enough, that's what the Fairlady Z tries to force the NSX to do. He does manage to cut back, and then he's going to get the inside run up towards the top of the hill. The Fairlady Z has no other choice other than to yield. It doesn't have the grip to try and keep it around the outside, and that would put the NSX up a position, but that has given Husky that little bit of a respite that he kind of needed from the onslaught from the Nissan, although his Volvo very quickly throws most of it away, trying to get turned down the corkscrew at the front, and we had a relatively quiet race. Completely different to Nürburgring. This BMW started at the front of the grid and vanished away from the rest of the field. You saw how hard people were fighting over second and third place and so on early on. This M1 could absolutely vanish while everybody was fighting. The Fairlady Z was an equally very, very fast car. There could have been perhaps an interesting battle between the pair of them had the Fairlady Z not started at the very back and have to work his way through all of the traffic to get up into that second place, and the turquoise and black M1 would come home in third. So a good race for the BMW M1s. Unfortunately, the Race 3 replay broke. This is something that is becoming a bit of a pain, really, with Forza. The Race 3 was fantastic. There was a great battle for the lead. There was a great battle over third, fourth, fifth place. And again, lots of really close racing. These cars proved to be fantastic fun. However, yeah, the replay, it said on my Xbox when I saved it, it said the replay had downloaded successfully. Didn't really think about it until I came to edit this video, and it just simply wasn't there. I asked around, and quite a few other people, or all the people I asked, none of them have got the replay saved, so obviously something was corrupted in that one. Why? I don't know. We didn't actually have, apart from one car lagging out in the before we got to the start line, there wasn't actually any problem. We didn't have any connection problems, internet problems and so on. It's just Forza had a bit of a whoopsie moment when it came to saving that replay, which is a shame because the third race was fantastic, and I do apologise to the people that were in it. I can't really do too much about it though when it's it sort of gives up. So, yeah, that is it for this FailRace versus the community, I'm afraid. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 3rd of March. We are going to be racing A-class cars that cost 1 million credits or more from the garage. So we're going to have sort of some of the classic race cars. Yeah, if you want to sign up and take part in that event, you can go to our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you can sign up in there. The forums have changed a little bit. They've kind of been slightly updated. So thank you to Jake and Alfie for the work that they did on updating the forum. So it looks a little bit different. It's still the same to navigate around it, though, just kind of a different style to it. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.